But my problem was, if I just keep creating more me's who can wear multiple hats, everyone's wearing multiple hats and no one's just doing what they do best, which is one thing or a handful of things. They're trying to do everything. And then you have a bunch of people running around. So I wanted to start building things out where there's more structure in place and everybody has their key role.
All right. We are back for the next episode of the $1 Million Agency Podcast. And I am super excited today. We have Arielle Cohen, who has built a multi-7-figure agency. And I really want to talk with her and hear about how she did it. I think she's going to be a fantastic guest. She's always been so giving and transparent. She's a very easy person to like. I think you guys are going to love her. So Arielle, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. And Arielle, you are not too far away from me. You're in South Florida. You're in Fort Lauderdale area, right?
Yes, we are.
What is the name of your agency?
Our agency is Marketing 411, and we also have a secondary business as well called Business 411. So that we have two sister companies that run kind of together, right, aligned with one another.
Okay. So what's the difference between marketing and Business 401?
Yeah, I think this is actually what made us stand out as an agency altogether, because we built our whole agency secondary off of our other business. So Business 411 focuses on more education-driven content and products. And then especially it's very industry specific. So we focus in the home service niche very heavily in roofing and contractors. And then Marketing 411 focuses on the design branding elements and the actual digital and marketing elements for these businesses.
Awesome. So the Business 411 business is focused on the education of contractors to try to help them be better at their business.
Correct. So on the education portion of things, we actually help them step by step. We create an entire SOP that helps them build their company up to get to the revenue, the structure. We lay out the hierarchy of who they need to hire, when they need to hire them, and how they could actually build and grow their business to also be multi-7 figures, and in roofing's case, 8-figure businesses.
That's fantastic. On a couple of our previous episodes, we were talking with people about how agencies oftentimes just kind of get stuck in this little box of, I'm going to help the agency owner, the business owner with this. And if it's outside of that, then they're like a bad business owner. But you've taken this more holistic approach of like, my job is to help these business owners move forward. And the agency skills are just one tool. And you've kind of tried to help them from a lot of different angles, which I imagine this helps you not only with client retention, but there's probably a lot of new leads that are coming through the Business 411. And you're probably having more success of an agency because they're running their business better.
Yeah, 100%, because you want to work with business owners who are educated so they can also understand what you're doing. And because we all know marketing is one side of it. But what happens after you get that lead? What happens after you build that brand? And that's not reliant on the company. That's reliant on the business owner and their internal team to actually be able to grow that business. So if you have a business owner who's educated and has all the tools in their toolkit to run the business and optimize it, then the marketing is it's the perfect pair. So it does help us to have great relationships and actually reach those clients' goals. 100%.
Awesome. I love this. It's really obvious by the way you've structured this and set this up that you're running a business that's based on impact and not just one that is designed to pad your bank account.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I love being here and on this podcast today, is because I love helping others. And especially through business, that's one of my strong suits. So I love sharing any knowledge, anything we've been through. I'm kind of an open book that can help others go through what I've already been through or what we've been through with this business.
That's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the roots. So if I'm correct, it started with Business 411 and then it moves into Marketing 411, right?
Correct. And I'm really excited because we've been in business for a few years now, and we're just now doing a formal launch, or I should say relaunch, of Marketing 411 so that we could have these organizations live within their own brands, even though they work so closely together. It made the most sense. But I actually started in the agency world way before all of this. So I've actually owned another agency. I've owned 2 agencies prior to this one. And it was more of a general agency. So we didn't have a specific industry or target, which worked, but it was a little stressful. And then on accident, I had met my business partner who had formed Business 411 and had already developed a strong presence in the roofing community, and it made the most sense to go ahead and open the agency around that. So we came together to start the agency side of things.
I'm a big believer in niching down, and I'd love to hear your perspective of what it was like building these first two agencies when you guys were more of a generalist agency, and how that compares to after you guys, like seeing it from both sides. What was it like after niching down? Was that a big move?
Yeah, so I did two things that probably most gurus will say don't do, but I was younger, I was learning, and also I didn't have the resources like this podcast and like other, groups that are out there now. So I kind of had to learn through trial and error, which is why I like giving advice and helping others so they don't go through this. But in the first two agencies, we were all over the place, right? Because we were just any industry. We had to recreate strategies for each new client because we had a huge beauty brand and then we had a doctor's office. And that marketing is very different. So you can imagine it was pulling the team in different directions, and it felt like we were getting nowhere fast, right? That was the first, side of things, being a generalist agency. I kind of accidentally came into the roofing industry, and I picked it up and I ran with it pretty quickly here, growing this agency. But something we did very interesting that most people probably wouldn't advise in the roofing industry. So we niched down to roofing, but rather than focusing on like one core product to roofing, we were kind of everything for roofing. So we did the opposite. We said, okay, we're only roofing, but you need this? Okay, we'll figure out a way to make this happen. We'll roll out this product or service. So we built a lot of our business based on what clients were requesting from us, what they were where the biggest gaps were and where they were expressing their problems were. We were building products around that. And we kind of over time saw what stuck and what had the most traction and movement and what wasn't as useful. And we would get rid of those products and keep the ones that really stuck. And that's how we ended up becoming more of a 360 agency, where we're able to offer so many different components to roofing businesses and contractors.
Yeah. Can we unpack that a little bit? What were some of the services that you guys tried that didn't work? And what were some of the ones that stuck and have kind of stood the test of time?
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones I could think of, which was very early on in the company, was doing CRM build-outs. So we know that how you manage your CRM is so important to the marketing process and how you convert leads, keep things organized, how you sell, right? It moves the needle big time with the company. And we noticed that roofers were having trouble, companies were having trouble with their CRM. So we were creating custom CRMs built off of Zoho. It was really cool. We built a lot of different CRMs out, but we realized each time we had to customize that CRM built to that company. It was not scalable. So over time, we actually just phased that out and we don't offer CRM builds anymore. But it was through trial and error that we learned what would work and what would stick and what wouldn't and what made sense for where we were going.
It drove revenue, but it pulled you guys away from maybe actions that could have been more profitable for you.
Definitely. 100%. That was a lesson we learned pretty early on.
Right. So now you guys are 3 million plus in annual revenue. What stuff is still a part of the package as kind of like your core offerings for roofers?
Yeah, so we're a full service agency. So we do all their branding and actual sales materials. What's really cool is not only do we design the sales materials, but we print them out for the clients as well. So we have a whole print shop as well. In roofing and contractors, it's very big because they're still using home presentations, folders, brochures, flyers, door hangers. That's very, very relevant in our industry still. And then we're doing actual building out of the websites. So we're keeping that brand consistent, whether it's physical materials or digital. So we're bringing that over into the website. We do full designs development. And then on the marketing end, we have a full advertising agency. We run Google Ads, LSA, SEO, Facebook ads. So basically everything they need online as well. But what the key difference I've noticed is, and what we're leaning more and more towards, is the education component. So everything we do is mixing in that education component to the business. So for example, I just launched something called Marketing Mentorship. It's a very low ticket monthly cost where every month I teach different things about marketing, different critical things about marketing to business owners, so they can go ahead and implement it themselves into their business.
That's fantastic. It seems like a really great way to kind of bring people in, build up that know, like, and trust. And I imagine a lot of these people that are coming in for the education component at some point are moving over to your agency services as well.
And vice versa. So I'm going ahead, and anyone who's on a current marketing package, they actually are on a marketing program with us. They get access to the marketing mentorship as well for them and their team, so they can learn other areas of marketing and be more knowledgeable about what we're actually doing or what they can do to improve results.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Arielle, you've got this company that's doing 3 million plus a year. What does your team look like, and how did that kind of change? What were some of the key hires along the way, and at what point did you make those?
There's been so many people. It's funny. I was just updating some files in our HR folder, and there was people's names I didn't even remember, because that's how many people we've kind of gone through. Obviously, we're very lucky. We have a lot of people who have been with us since the inception of the company who have stayed. But when you're growing the organization, you're trying out different people for different roles, and you kind of go through finding what is the best fit and what drives the company forward. I would say one of the things right now, being at the 3 million mark, the hurdle we're having, and I think anyone who hits that 3 million mark is going to, or somewhere close to it, will have this hurdle, is going from having more generalists within the company to more specialists. So rather than people who can do everything, we're hyper focused on who's like, we just hired 2 really, really great expert Google Ads people. They don't do Facebook ads. They don't do SEO. They're really great at just PPC. And so starting to build out those specialists. And then the next thing I would say is bringing in more management is where we're at. Personally, I'm looking to offload and start to delegate a lot of the tasks I'm doing as the owner and CMO of the company, and offload it to somebody who's capable of running the organization while I focus on continuous growth along with my partners.
Excellent. So you have a couple of business partners that are part of these companies?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So this idea of switching from these like generalists into specialists, the challenge that I've had with this, whether it be our agency or the software company, is as we go to hire specialists, we're trying to hire people that know a lot more about this subject than we do, which can kind of create some hurdles in the hiring process. How do we evaluate their skills? And I'm wondering, like, advice do you have on sourcing talent where you can really find the specialists? And how can you be sure that these specialists who probably know more about PPC than you do are actually as good as you hope they are?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a really great question. I'm glad you asked that. Just to let you know how particular I was, is it took me almost a year to find our first PPC specialist. We had another PPC person in place, but to find someone who I felt was really at that expert level, it took a year. I did not settle for somebody who was average. And we have a physical office here in Fort Lauderdale. So not only was I trying to find someone who was an expert, I was also limited by area. So that was a really difficult task. And then how I got the second person was, and this is something I always recommend people do, is I asked that person who we hired after they had been with us for over 30 days and I felt like they were a good fit and there was, they were doing what they said they were going to do, the results, I could tell they were very qualified. I asked if they knew anyone who was also an expert looking for a job, and they actually preferred that second person who they had worked with before at a previous organization. And we've actually done that twice this year. 2 of the people we hired this year were referrals from other team members. So that's one hack and trick to try to get more quality people in. Usually if you have a good employee and they vouch for somebody, there's a better chance that person will also be, of a similar caliber. As far as actual technical skills, it is very difficult getting a generalist going and then getting a specialist. You really have to be very specific. We started using like predictive indexes and other type of testing to see what their personalities and strengths were. That's one thing. And we know that fits in certain roles better than others. But my problem was, if I just keep creating more me's who can wear multiple hats, everyone's wearing multiple hats and no one's just doing what they do best, which is one thing or a handful of things. They're trying to do everything. And then you have a bunch of people running around. So I wanted to start building things out where there's more structure in place and everybody has their key role.
This is a big transition to make. And I'm kind of moving in the same direction in my agency is really trying to find the best talent. When we start out, a lot of times I think people think like, hey, I've got to be good at all these different things. But if you see somebody that's operating at a really high level, one thing that's almost always true is they found a way to hire really top level people and delegate so that they can move on. They spend a lot of their time kind of on the mission and the focus and bringing in, leveling up the talent. That's a massive skill. So it sounds like it took you a year. Can you just kind of give us the high level steps of what your hiring process looks like? Aside from, I know that you brought it in through the referral from teammates, but we don't have somebody that's on our team. That's like a really high level A player. Maybe we can't trust their recommendations as much as somebody like that you found. What would you do in that situation?
Yeah, you need to get rid of that person if you can't trust them. But no, so what I recommend is we use Indeed for our hiring here in, our office. If you're run more of a remote agency, which is a very popular structure nowadays as well, you can go ahead and we use things like Upwork or onlinejobs.ph, mainly Upwork. I'm really big with hiring overseas as well. We do have a handful of overseas team members who have been on with us for years, and they help get some of the different tasks done that maybe in the office doesn't make sense to do. And it's very standard. We just go through a hiring process. I mean, we obviously upload the qualifications of what we're looking for. We always put qualifying questions that will immediately eliminate, like hard no's for us is in a qualification question. This way we're not wasting time on like irrelevant resumes. And then I usually go through a series of interviews. It's very rare that I hire on the first interview. Usually I'll do like a 15-minute call to gauge how the person is. And if I think they meet some of the initial baseline questions, I'll invite them in person, or if they weren't local, on a Zoom call to dive deeper into a longer interview to really pick their brain and see what they know.
On those longer interviews, is this where you start to ask like more technical questions and you're really like grilling them kind of, right?
Yeah, I mean, I make it fun. I'm not really grilling them. I kind of take a more casual approach. Okay. But yes, essentially, I'm making sure they're meeting my threshold and fact checking what they're saying. So I'm asking things like, if I was for PPC, for example, if I'm going to hand you a brand new PPC account for a roofing company, what are the steps you would take to get that account going? And asking them to outline the steps they would take. Or, hey, there's an account I'm going to hand you. It's completely underperforming for a roofing company. They're not getting many calls. What are the steps you would take to analyze to see what could be improved? They would take, and immediately I'm getting insight into how their brain works, how they think, and if they're taking the same steps I would take.
This is great. So let's talk a little bit about on the remote side. So I know in my agency, I've hired a lot from Upwork. I've hired from Online Jobs. And over the years, we've gotten better at making sure that we're getting what we're paid for, but it can be challenging when they're overseas and there are cultural differences and maybe working at different times. And we do our best to try to measure productivity. And I'm just wondering what you guys have put in place so that you still kind of get the benefits of having somebody in the office, but with these people that are overseas and making sure that they are actually productive.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I'm glad you asked this. I'm really passionate about employing people overseas. It's actually one of my core focuses this year in terms of showing others really how they could leverage it to grow their company. Obviously, there's cost benefits to it as a business owner. You really impact people's lives overseas. We've had stories like people who have bought the first car in their family history because of our jobs, have bought their whole family a new home, completely renovated. I mean, the home is nicer than my house here in South Florida. And these are all things because of the opportunities we gave them. And so that makes me just really feel proud and some of my best accomplishments, because why do we get into business? It's usually to help people and make a positive impact. And that's what we were able to do. So with overseas, I think it's with culture. There is cultural differences. And I actually break down, because I've worked with so many different people in different countries, what those cultural differences are based on the country they're in. I found there's certain personality traits that, depend on where they're from, that you'll see come forth in how they show up for the job. And I include them in everything. This is the biggest factor. You can't have an in-person team and an overseas team and not include them together. So every day we have a morning meeting, 9 a.m. We have a morning meeting, and every person's on that call, including the overseas team. So they share our same wins. They're in the same chats. We do have separate in-office chats that are office-specific messaging, but we include the overseas team in our culture here as much as possible. We also provide training for them. We train them and help them really, get through. And then we're looking at production. So something you asked, like, how do we make sure they're really doing what we told them to do? But one, we have somebody managing them. 2, we have like time tracking systems set up to make sure they're clocking in, clocking out, working in the times they said they were going to work. And then 3, we're looking at different reporting and metrics to see, okay, what were their deliverables and did they achieve those? Obviously, project management is one of those. If they have 10 tasks open and at the end of the week, 10 tasks are still open, okay, what's going on here? So basic task management can help accomplish that for you if you don't have these robust tools.
So in our agency, what we've done is we have different points for different pages because a homepage maybe is going to take longer than a blog post. And we use that as kind of our productivity tracking. Are you guys doing something similar like this to like a task? Maybe one task could take 8 hours, another task could take 15 minutes. And I'm just wondering, like, what are the actual mechanics of how you guys are translating a task into their productivity?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things we know take an average amount of time. For example, I know you use web development, but one I could think of right now is social media postings. We have someone who schedules social media postings, and we know it takes about, I think it was 15 minutes to schedule the post per account.
Right.
So we're able to kind of see, okay, how many accounts can this person get to in one day? And we're able to kind of calculate it that way. And then there's other things that are kind of, maybe it's a troubleshooting issue and they have to wait on support and things like that where we can't really track the time as much. But regular meetings help that. So our meeting schedule, we have a couple different breakout meetings with those departments. But every morning I mentioned we have a 9 a.m. meeting. Monday, Wednesday, Friday is full team meetings. Everybody, all hands on deck. But Tuesday, Thursday, we have breakout meetings. And what this means is it's meetings with each department. So each of the departments meet and they're more focused on department issues, task management, things related to their department only.
Right. What are the departments that you guys have in your company?
So we have a sales department. We have a design department. We have a website department. We have a marketing department. And then within that marketing department, we have an advertising department.
Wow. This is different from some of you guys out there that are maybe not running a 360-degree agency, right? Where you guys are handling, like you had mentioned earlier, you guys are handling printing and door hangers and stuff like this. So you've got kind of like a full department dedicated to design. What's the difference between the marketing and the advertising department? How is that kind of segmented out?
Yeah, so the advertising team will have their own individual meetings outside of the morning meeting to talk about advertising strategies, goals of the department, different campaigns on a more technical level. But then on the morning meetings, the marketing team meets as a whole. So this would include account managers, any VAs or people who are doing social media, let's just say, and then the actual advertising team will be involved in that as well. So it's kind of under the marketing umbrella.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Arielle, let's change gears for a little bit. Let's talk about what was the pathway like? I know that you came on as a partner at some point. Where was the agency at when you joined from a revenue perspective?
Yeah. So actually the agency, we started from scratch. It was at zero.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You've seen the whole show here.
Yeah, exactly. My business partner had a lot of experience and already had credibility in the roofing industry based on her previous experience and also consulting. And so she was getting a lot of people in the industry reaching out to her for help with marketing, but she felt like, okay, I haven't ran an agency before. I really need help to build something out. That's where I came in. That kind of accidentally happened, which is why I think networking events, podcasts like this, and immersing yourself in this world will help you grow so much because there's connections you don't even expect you will make that can change your entire trajectory of your company or your life. And in this case, forming this partnership with my business partner led me into the world of roofing.
Right. Like roofers can have a reputation for being a little rough. And I know I've seen from coaching women in the agency space, there's a difference in the way that some contractors can talk to you. And you guys have gone into a pretty male dominated space in the roofing niche. And I'm just wondering, with 2 females running that, how has that experience been?
Yeah, we actually have 3 females running it. It's been amazing for me. Listen, it just helps us stand out even more. I mean, yeah. I think I already probably stand out to some, but it definitely helps us just stand out in a crowded space. And when my business partner first entered the roofing industry, she was one of the only females, to the point where when you would go to conferences, she would be one of the only females there. Now we're seeing more and more females enter the space, which is really, really cool. But I think the biggest thing you're getting at is you're saying contractors could be rough or roofers can be rough. And we could say that about many different industries, right? Like lawyers.
Sure.
Lawyers can be cutthroat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, you have to speak their language and they'll respect you if you understand their business. I can't tell you, hey, I'm going to do great marketing for you, but I don't understand how a lawyer's business or a roofing business works. So speak their language.
Yeah. So this respect, you're kind of like demanding it when it's obvious that you understand the industry, right? It's like, okay, you have my attention now. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female.
Yeah, exactly. It was building credibility, building trust.
How do you do that? What did you guys do to build credibility and trust?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing we found, and we kind of accidentally landed on this as well through trial and error and learning and listening to the market and seeing what would be most productive and impact the companies, is the education component. If somebody teaches you how to grow as a person or how to grow as a company or how to hire your next sales rep, right? You're going to instantly have some validation for that person and some credibility to that person and trust them more. And so that education component really helped build up that, okay, well, what else do you have to offer me? Because I know I've already seen the value you've provided here.
Right. You guys build a tremendous amount of trust when you educate somebody.
100%.
So how are you getting people into your world for this education component?
We're advertising. We're building up organic following. We're engaging in groups. All the things we preach our clients to do and we do for them, we do ourselves. Initially, when we started out, we actually didn't run any ads. We built it all off community and we had a reputation in the industry and we leveraged that. We leveraged that community and that trust. Now, as we expand and we want to reach new markets, new people, we run a ton of ads that bring people in. We're educating them. We're providing value. You know, it's kind of like that give, ask component. You know, everyone wants to know what's in it for them. So we're giving. And then when it makes sense, we ask for the sale.
Right.
But they come in having that trust.
Right. You guys probably get in the situation where people start asking you, where you've just been giving and they're like, hey, can you help me with this? Right. And you don't even have to ask because now they know that you know what you're talking about. And they're like, they want to go faster and you've completely disarmed them.
100%. That's correct. That's exactly what works. And I found that to be the best recipe. And that's really what we're investing into.
Right. So when you say you're being active in the groups in the community, so I guess my understanding of that is maybe there's like a Facebook group for roofing and you're going in there and you're creating value posts that can help them with different parts of their business. Maybe not everything focused on marketing, but just helping them move forward in business. Am I understanding that correctly? Is that kind of how it works?
Exactly. And that's something that especially my business partner has really leveraged and learned how to do successfully from the very beginning. That's why we didn't have to run ads in the beginning because we had a full audience already just from her organic presence in groups and on Facebook alone.
Awesome. And with this presence and this following that you're building, this is you guys are in there on a daily or maybe a couple times a day. You guys are in there interacting with people and posting stuff and creating content that can help you guys continue to establish this relationship?
100%. And we could even do more. Honestly, that's something always a part of our goals. How can we do more? How can we do more? How many people consumed our content today?
This is awesome. It's so good to come at it from this angle with education and kind of like strengthening this relationship. And it's I think it's Zig Ziglar, right? If you help enough people, you can have anything you want. And this is what it really means when people say value first, right? It's not like value first with the hope of I'm going to get something in return. It's just like giving. And then the rest of the stuff just kind of sorts itself out.
Understanding their problems. That's something I really want to address for any new or growing agency owners or businesses is, did you take a moment? Of course, you want to sell them your marketing services or everybody needs marketing, right? That's a very general statement. We all could probably agree everyone needs marketing, but did you actually take the time to understand the industry problems and that particular person's company problems?
I think when you start to recognize those patterns and then you come up with a valuable solution, right? If you spend enough time on a problem and then you see that problem is perpetuating across the entire industry, now you're in a position that you have a really valuable service. This is what we've done in our agency too, right? We've noticed that we're sending a lot of companies a lot of leads, and maybe they're not answering the phone because they are an owner operator, right? And then the value of our leads is dramatically decreased because they're not answering the phone. So what if we put a phone service in there that understands the questions to ask on how to qualify them, and then we can actually schedule for them so they get more appointments, and maybe we take something that they're not great at, which is like the admin side of things, off their hands. Is this an example of a solution that you guys are trying to solve for them?
Yeah, and that's actually a great example of testing out products and services. So we found, and most agencies will always find, people are not great at answering the phones. They either miss the calls, which our lowest campaign conversions always have to do with people who do not answer phones, or they answer the phone and it's someone who's inexperienced, who doesn't know what questions to ask and how to actually achieve the conversion, the booked appointment. So what did? We said, okay, this is a problem. It's affecting our conversion campaigns for our clients, because remember, we can only get the lead there at this point. What you do with it is then up to the owners. We're like, we want to take more control. So something we did was we launched our own call answering service. And we were taking calls for all of or most of our marketing clients to ensure that calls were getting booked. And it was an additional add-on service. It was not included. If they needed call answering, it was an additional service. So those are how we explore when we're growing our agency, what type of other products factor in and contribute to what we're already doing.
Yeah, we're running the exact same thing in my agency. And this is another benefit of being niche down. The people that are answering the calls, like while one roofing company, or for me, concrete company, may offer a different service than another one, like after the phone answering team has been educated on the topic, they're not getting thrown at a bunch of curveballs anymore. They know how to respond. They understand the services. They understand the market. And it makes it so easy. If you were a generalist trying to solve a problem like this, it could be really difficult. If you're in 15 different niches, maybe there's 10 questions in every niche, and there's 150 questions that they have to know off the top of their head. It just becomes overwhelming. I don't know how you could do that. And yeah, I think once you make that decision, I know there's a lot of people out there that run agencies, and maybe they haven't really fully committed into their niche. And you just start to realize like benefit after benefit after benefit when you make that choice to niche down.
100%, because you actually understand the industry and understand the problems those customers are facing. And then you could build upon that, and you could go so deep with that. And you could roll out so many different services just to that problem alone.
For sure. Arielle, as you're climbing from like $0 to, let's put the first threshold at like $1 million. What were some of the mistakes, and like, what did you have to learn to go from there to $1 million? Like, if you could go back and do it again and tell yourself this, like, you would have been able to go faster.
Oh, that's such a great question. You know, it feels like it was like such a long time ago that we were at zero going to that first.
When was it?
Well, I think we've been in business since January 1st, 2021.
Okay. So it's been 3.5 years, right?
Exactly. 3.5 years. And so you were talking all the way about year one for us. I would say one of the biggest mistakes was how I hired. I was still wearing multiple hats for a very long time, honestly, up until recently. I was wearing multiple hats, which was very draining because I was doing so much and had my hands in everything, which was not productive to the growth. So early on, I would have really taken the time to assess my calendar. What are the things that actually move the business that are going to get me to that next 1 million? What are the things I actually enjoy doing? Okay, that's my task, and hire out for everything else. That's something I would have done earlier on. I also would have done, I did like multiple programs and packages. I would have tried to solidify one package, perfect it before rolling out more. Because then what happened is, as I hit 1 million, I hit this break point where I had to go back and kind of QA quality, assure everything that was happening and fix any break points, because we had 3 different marketing programs at that time. So now we only have 2 main core programs.
Right. So when you say you had to put quality control on this, you're really talking about the service, because there was these different packages and there's different services, and maybe there's like broken pieces in a couple of these services, or like, okay, it's almost like you've got this wide menu of things and you're trying to be great at all of them at the same time. So you would have narrowed your focus and then been great at the smaller services, and then maybe over time kind of like added those on.
Exactly. Instead of trying to launch with so many things to cater to everything, I would have picked maybe 1 or 2 main core offerings, focused on just driving those offerings, perfecting them to the point where I don't need to be involved at all, and just focusing on getting more sales to it, and then adding more down the line once I get past that first million mark. I think people don't understand, and this is hopefully very motivating to those who are building right now, but how it's so obtainable for you to hit $1 million in your agency. It's very obtainable.
Right.
And rather quickly.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where once you've done it, and once you get kind of up on top of this first hill and you look down and you're like, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, or I made this into something bigger. And, as a coach, what I've learned a lot of the time is that people are their own worst enemy. And if they would take action and they would kind of combine that action with this ability to just like, look, what did I do? And kind of the self-evaluation of what's working and not what's working, and not be so committed to just be like, hey, this is what I've decided is the service, and I'm going to beat on this until it works. Whereas like maybe just try a couple things, get some traction and adjust, right? We don't have to like stay in this small box. Like you've added on the phone system, the phone answering service. I've done the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. So Arielle, when I started my agency, I started out as kind of like a lead generation where we were building the sites and we own the sites and we would like sell the leads from those. And Google has made changes, and then we kind of pivoted and we became a client services. And SEO, it used to be, well, hey, maybe we can get the rankings in about 3 months to, 6 months is probably more of a closer average now. And when clients come to us, they're not excited to be like, hey, can I pay you for 6 months before I see results? That's forced us into, we've got to run ads because we need to give a positive return on investment from day one. So it seems like paid media for agencies that are running SEO, this has to be part of that core offering. Do you agree with that?
That's actually how we got connected, because I thought it was so awesome what you were doing with the rank and runs. And it had worked for so many years, obviously, until Google kind of pulled the rug out and made changes, and you have to, adapt. And that's happening with so many businesses outside of marketing, right? You can't control the changes that Facebook's going to make tomorrow, Google's going to make tomorrow, which is why we chose to go with a 360 approach for marketing. So if the rug was to get pulled off on one avenue, we still have 2 or 3 other avenues we're reliant on. So something we always position, we don't do any standalone SEO by itself. Mm-hmm. The reason being is most of our clients care about, where's our leads? How many leads did we get? Right? They don't have the patience or understanding because they don't have the education or knowledge. And also they're focused on now. They need revenue to continue their business forward and pay their people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're doing the same thing. My business partner, Chris, in our coaching program talks about having like a 4-legged stool, right? So if you were to lose a leg, then you still have 3 other legs and the stool is going to be fine. So if you're just solely relying on SEO, and perhaps a big focus within that SEO is the Google business profile, and then maybe that gets suspended, what's your plan to keep the client, right? If that's your only, that's like a 1-legged stool. So if that leg goes down, then you're going to lose your client a lot of the times. So what we've done, we've added in multiple ad services and things like direct mail, where these are designed to get leads now, and then we can work on the SEO, which can get maybe more and high quality and cheaper leads later on. It sounds like you've kind of taken a similar approach.
Yes, definitely. And it keeps everybody in one place. Because what happens is there's so much content that people are consuming out there that they hear a buzzword or a keyword about SEO or about PPC or about direct mail and how it could impact their business. And now these businesses are reaching out to multiple vendors where we know we could just handle it all in one place for them. That's another important factor of it as well, is having that kind of all in one, or at least the majority in one approach, where you have one person who's your partner you can work with to get things done. So it made sense for our agency, but it also made sense for our clients, especially with the relationships we build. They don't want to be having to deal with 10 different people.
Right. Let's talk about the relationships that you build with them. Let's say the client comes in, which for you guys, it sounds like a lot of the ways are coming in. They're coming in through Business 411, the education, we're getting them warmed up, and then they sign up for Marketing 411. What does the process look like after that from onboarding, and then what's kind of the ongoing relationship to make sure that like the communication and make sure that they're staying happy?
Communication obviously is very important. I always say there's only two things that matter to clients, and it's results and communication. That's the two reasons why clients will ever leave you. It always filters back to one of those. Either the results are bad, or the communication was poor, or you didn't know how to communicate the right way. So I think that relationship with their account manager is really crucial. Who you put on those front lines and how they communicate is so important to the retention of your clients. And then who's actually delivering the results on the back end is also so important. And that's where those specialists come in, or having someone you know and feel confident can deliver those results, because customers are relying on you. Yeah. So
absolutely. I get excited. It's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, no, and I can keep going because there's so much to this, right? When you get to this like 3 million mark, there's so many different running components. And now our goal, like our hurdles, how do we get to that 5? Just like the person trying to get to their first 1 million. How do we get to that 5? And then from there, when we get to 5, how do we get to 10? Right? And there's different hurdles each time, like investing in the right people and things like that. But the relationship with our clients is that needs to be an investment you make. It's going to keep your revenue growing, keep the retention high, and keep the reputation you have in the industry high. This is very unique to us. Most agencies don't have this, and most agencies might not plan to have this. But we have a 5,000 square foot office here that holds it has 100 people classroom. Okay, we teach classes there, obviously. But what this does is it gives the opportunity for our clients to come in person, learn from us, meet us, hang out with us. We do a happy hour. We're not just, suit and tie casual. Obviously, it's not the roofing industry. We're very we have a fun happy hour. We usually rent out a cool restaurant or a club or something, and we all hang out with the clients, and we build that relationship, that friendship with them, that partnership.
I love that. I love that. And I also just want to remind you that I am in driving distance away from you. So I do participate in happy hours. I would love sometime to come down and hang out, because your guys' energy, I've been around you and your partner, and it's just so beautiful the way you guys do this. And it makes a lot of sense that you have this classroom when you've built Business 411. It's all started with impact and education. And rather than being a marketing agency, it almost feels like you guys are a growth agency, and marketing is just one of the levers that you can pull to help move things for your clients.
Exactly. And actually, we have a class, our 401 roofing systems class is October 16th through the 18th here in Fort Lauderdale. And we're going to be having a happy hour. If you want to come to the class or come to the happy hour, you have an open invite to that. I
love that. That goes out for everybody. No, it's not. It's just for me. But yes, this is awesome. This is such a great example of how you can think outside the box as a marketer. These are the things that you can do. If you can stop viewing your clients as clients and start to view them as humans that are trying to build their own dream and their own companies, these are just solutions, right? These are ideas that will happen. You don't have to follow this beat down playbook that every other digital marketing agency follows out there.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because it's how are you going to be unique? Everybody's pitching SEO. Everybody's pitching Google ads. What are you going to do to be unique? Something I'm leaning really towards, and this is a great idea for anyone in an agency who's maybe at this point, but is offering video services, actually going out, meeting the clients, seeing what they, what their office is like, and getting video content that you're going to need anyways for the marketing. And it's an additional up service, just like how we rolled out call answering. Another thing's AI. What can you do to kind of make the life of that contractor or your client easier? But just things, or have an office, or where you can have 100 people and set up an event, or rent a space, or set up a meetup. Whatever it is, you have to do something different to stand out, because everyone's pitching marketing, and it's kind of getting old in my opinion.
Yeah, we've talked to the clients, and it's the same old song and dance. You do SEO, they do SEO. You maybe you're better at sales and you can land them, but if you're doing the same thing, there's a good chance that another marketing agency can come by it and kind of grab one of your clients. But if you've got kind of all these offerings that they don't have, there's a built-in stickiness that's going to make a big difference. If we're landing clients and losing clients, then it's really hard to grow to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. But if you build in this stickiness and you have ways, you're going to need a bigger bucket, because the stuff is going to keep coming in, right? I think that's where a lot of agencies that I've seen especially ones that get stuck around like 40K a month, is they're like, they figured out how to land clients, but they have issues with scaling, and that can go to retention. And then that can go back a lot to what you said with communication, not having that. Maybe it's a deliverability issue, but if you've gotten to like the 25 to 40K, you figured out how to land clients and you've got some level of retention, but it's time to kind of like go to the next level. And this is like separating yourself from other companies, right? And when you do that, it can also dramatically increase your referrals, right? Where it's like, these people in the roofing space, another benefit to niching down, they know other roofers. And when you do a great job, they don't just become a client, they become a promoter, right?
Yes, you need a referral program for your agency. Everybody needs a referral program for their agency. It's low-hanging fruit. I can't tell you. I mean, even if we just have a handful of people who refer their friends, it works for us.
Yeah. Arielle, where were the real tough points with you between, let's say, maybe from like $750,000. So from that $30,000 or $40,000 a month, is that right? Maybe $50,000 to $60,000 a month, going to $2 million. Where did the wheels kind of fall off, and you guys had to retool things again?
Processes. We had processes, but as we grew and brought new people on for different roles, processes became blurry, and we had to work on realigning those processes and re-educating our team on what these processes are, why they're so important, and documenting them. So we have a really cool system now that has all of our SOPs for everything you could think of in our company documented. Anything that's in my head, my business partners in their heads is documented now in an SOP that everyone can follow. That was one of the break points when we hit that threshold you're talking about was revenue, and also investing in the wrong people. We were kind of learning who was the right fit for what roles and what roles we needed through kind of a trial and error approach. And so investing in the right people and kind of knowing when to get rid of the wrong people.
Yeah, that can be hard for somebody that's empathetic to maybe there's somebody that you really like, but they're not performing. And if you're thinking of that this person is not the right fit in your company, you probably should have let them go a while ago. And I've seen a lot of people will hang on to them even after that point, where it's like, I need to replace this person, and months can go on, and it's like a growing headache for you. You seem like someone that's really empathetic. How have you, what's that self-talk that you've had where it's like, okay, I'm just not willing to tolerate this anymore?
Yeah, I'm really guilty of taking too long to let people go. And I try to I always, even though I have an emotional side, I remove that from business. I try to be more logical, but I also think, is this going to make my life more difficult by letting them go? Because now whose plate is this going to fall back on? That's kind of my main reason. But something that's really important is when somebody signs on to be a part of the team, they make a commitment. Right? When they sign on, they usually have some sort of offer letter that lays out what their job role is, their responsibilities. They make a commitment to meet that. And so what I do like to do, if the company obviously doesn't have a revenue issue, is give that 30-day improvement plan with, hey, here are the things that we need to do. Here's the problems. Here's what we need done. And, here we're going to be monitoring it week by week for the next 30 days. And if you don't do it, it could result in XYZ, which is letting you go. Now, I found that you want them to buy in with their commitment. Like, you want them to be able to say, okay, can you commit to this 30-day plan? If they commit, it makes it a lot easier at the end of the 30 days because now I know it's not on me. I gave them that chance. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and they committed and they didn't meet their commitment.
I love that. I'm going to implement that in my agency right away. I haven't done that 30-day thing. It's giving them the feedback that they need to correct, and like you said, getting their buy-in on it. And then if you've given them the feedback and they can't correct, then it's like you've given them this leeway, and I think it makes that whole conversation easier. It's like, we've had the talk, we're going to monitor this, we reevaluate, you're still not there. It's not going to change at that point, right?
You can't do that for everybody, right? There's certain people you just got to cut because it just doesn't make financial sense, or they did something unethical. If there's something unethical, I would never stand for that. There's no 30-day notice. It's immediate.
It's gone, right? Yeah.
Termination. But hopefully that's not the case. Maybe it's someone you're just in between. We have a lot of in-betweeners, right? Are they adding value? Are they not? Are they doing what they were supposed to do? Are they not? Especially when you're a younger company and you don't have things as SOP out as processes in place. You wonder, Did I just not give them the correct direction and process? So that 30 days kind of gives it a chance to be really crystal clear.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's like those kind of different systems apply when someone's in a different situation. So you had mentioned that you guys have this like really good SOP system. Can you just unpack that a little bit and get into a little bit more of the mechanics and details of that? Like, where is it hosted? What makes a good SOP?
Yeah, so we use Zoho, and there's a tool called Zoho Learn. And within Zoho Learn, we have different playbooks and manuals related to different departments. So how we have it structured is within Zoho Learn, there's different department playbooks. There's one for the whole company, and there's one for each department. So there's a marketing one, a website one, a design one, a CRM one, right, for the different parts of the company. And then within that, we actually have different subtopics where all Zoho Learns are within there. All SOPs are within those different topics. So to give you an example, in Zoho Learn, there's a marketing folder, a marketing playbook. That marketing playbook, everybody in the marketing team has access to it. Within that marketing playbook, there's a folder for SEO related playbooks, for Google Ads playbooks, for maybe it's tracking playbooks. And within there lives certain documentation. That's how we have it laid out.
What are the key components of, if you were to just pick like one SOP? We understand kind of the architecture now, but if we looked at one SOP, what do you think is required that's in there? And what's kind of the goal with that SOP? You pass this off to someone, and what's true after they go through this?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked this. So I can get kind of technical, but here's how it starts. It's what you need to know is the very first thing. And by what you need to know, I mean the person reading it, right? What is this SOP? Who is it for? Why is it important? And how does it work? Are the very first things on the SOP. And then after there, it's the goal and the step-by-step. So on the step-by-step, it could be text and or screenshots, step-by-step of what you need to know to get this done. Okay, so if you were setting up a Google Ads account, right, it'd be step-by-step on how to set up a Google Ads account. Now, what's really important is I do two things. I then take that SOP and I do a team training. Whether it's on Zoom or in person, it's always recorded. And what I do is that Zoom recording or that meeting gives context to the SOP. It gives it from how I would explain it from my own words. So now anyone who's on the team current understands more context than just the writing and screenshots. I upload that video to the top of the playbook as well. So now if we hire anyone in the future, they also have access to that video. So there's no reason why after I put the SOP down, I do a team training where they're able to ask all their questions. So I make sure everything's answered and I upload the video. There's no reason that new and existing people can't implement.
I love it. Yeah. You really kind of have given them a checklist that they can kind of refer back to. So on multiple iterations, and the video is like, hey, here's full context of it. After they go through that a couple times, after they've done it, they've got this like step-by-step to make sure that it's getting done exactly the same way each time. How do you guys handle the situation where, like, how are you ensuring that they're actually following the SOP? And like, sometimes in our agency, we had problems in the past. We've written up these really detailed SOPs, and then we realize that they're just not being followed. And there's so many tasks going on in the agency at the same time. It's like, how do we know that everyone is doing what's actually in the SOP?
When you figure that out, let me know, because there's always some form. So we call it a utilization rate, and we actually try to measure this metric within our CRM and within, some other tools. It's the utilization rate, but it's hard to track everything, right? Because you don't really know, and you don't want to micromanage people. So it's really kind of, if you see there's fall off in results or how things are done, you can address it and remind people. I do notice that sometimes over a certain period of time, it needs to be brought back up. Hey, reminder, here's what we do. Here's how we do things. It does need to be brought up. And I feel like that's a forever kind of, I haven't figured out the magic on fixing it.
I was saying that like I had some solution, and that is certainly not the case. It's something we still struggle with. But one thing we did put into place is we start to pay attention. Like I'm like you, I hate to micromanage, but I have a duty to my clients and to the rest of the people that work within the company to make sure that we are delivering results at a very high standard. So when there is people that are deviating from what we've laid out, we start to track that. And if somebody is like, hey, we see that Johnny here has 20 mistakes this quarter, right? Is there a pattern here? Can we fix this? Or is Johnny somebody he's not going to follow the SOP? And that's going to be a problem for us to be able to scale long term because we don't have predictable results with his part of projects, right?
Do you know that just by checking their work, like having someone go in and kind of check to see how things were done?
Yeah. So if you're not getting the results you want and you start to reverse engineer it and you come back and you work backwards and be like, okay, this was actually not done. This was on this person. They're responsible for it. At that point, they're like, okay, we're marking that. We have a spreadsheet. We have I think it was Chris Rodriguez who mentioned a mistake tracker. So we started putting that into place and, it's helped us. It's not so much as like we're doing it for like punitive, but it can help us understand and diagnose, okay, this is where it's falling. If Johnny's making the same mistake every time, then we can have a conversation and we can fix that. And maybe that none of those mistakes happen again. But if we're not tracking it and we're just guessing it, and especially as you have a bunch of different project managers and operations and different stuff, it's like stuff could be going on that you don't know about for a long time. But if we're all kind of like going back to the same thing and like putting this stuff in here, not only quantifying, but qualifying, like, okay, it was this type of mistake. Is there a pattern here that we can fix across the whole company?
I love that. Yeah, sometimes there's like clarity that needs to be had or another conversation to really understand that it's the company way. It's not like everyone can have their own individual creativity and bring ideas. I love collaboration, but there's got to be a certain way that's the company's standard way of operating that everybody follows. And if you can't follow that, then maybe this team isn't a good fit for you.
For sure. Right. You can't have like the guy at the McDonald's who's supposed to be making burgers and like he decides he's going to make tacos and just be like, they might be great tacos, but that's not what we do here. Right. So there has to be an agreement of what the standard is here, right? And how the company operates. So we're at the end of our call. This has been fantastic. Tons of value. I would love to just kind of have you, if you have any final thoughts of things that have really helped you in your journey, whether that be like a piece of advice or a mentor, a book, anything like this. If you put yourself in the shoes of when like Arielle was starting out your agency, maybe somewhere along your way to 1 million, what would you tell these people?
I would say there's a book I'm reading right now. You probably read it, Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. I would say focus on that. I can't tell you how much I was in the weeds for so long. Up until recently, even on almost a $3 million agency, I was still in the weeds when I could have been a little bit more proactive and smarter with how I handled my time and delegating. That's going to be your biggest challenge as a business owner. It is not a flex to wear multiple hats. It's just not. So get out of that mindset.
It's a weakness, really. It's like delegation, I think, is one of the most valuable skills in business. When you can like delegate and you can, as Dan says in his book, you just kind of keep moving up your buyback, right? I knew that you had read that book earlier when you were talking about how you were putting your time into things that you enjoy and also are higher dollar stuff. Dan's actually been my coach for the last few years. It's been 2.5 years that I've been working with him. Fantastic coach, following him on social, like, as a SaaS founder, he's one of the best SaaS founder coaches in the world, but from a business standpoint, he has tons of great business advice. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of people, they think it's a flex to talk about how busy they are. But let's look at like the top of the top, right? Dan Martell's hero, Richard Branson. He has 400 companies. He's a billionaire who spends his time on Necker Island and kite surfing because he's effectively been able to delegate. And that's really what this is about, right? We may love the businesses that we have started, but it's also true that most of us had a dream of personal freedom. And if you become a slave to your business, there's nothing great about that. Even if your business is financially successful, the whole idea is that you can do something with that and have fun, enjoy life, right?
100%. And I think you said it earlier, just get out of your own way. Everyone who's listening to this right now, you can do it. You can start $1 million, multi-million-dollar agency, and really sky's the limit. You just have to know how to leverage your time and know what works.
Awesome. Fantastic advice. Arielle, thank you so much. I know that you guys got a ton of value from this. Maybe we'll have to bring Arielle back one time. All right. We appreciate you guys. Tune in for the next episode of the $1 Million Agency.